Welcome everyone, it's Jennifer McGuire. If you've watched any of my videos lately, you know that I love stamp sets that involve a lot of layering because you end up with really gorgeous and realistic looking images when you're done. Well, I have a new layering stamp set that I'm using today, and I thought I'd use it in a completely different way so that I can show you how you can kind of get new and different looks with the layering type of stamps. So today I'm showing you that all you need is a white pigment ink and a colored ink to really create some great looks with these layered stamps. So the stamp set that I'll be using is new from Altenew. It's one of my favorite stamp companies, and it's called Vintage Flowers. There's a lot of different types of flowers on here, including like a branch or a stem on the bottom, a lot of different size images, so you can get a lot out of this one stamp set. I'm using Hero Art's craft cardstock for this. I love it because it's got a little bit of texture to it. It's thick, it has those little flecks in it, kind of like a paper bag, but much thicker. It's just beautiful. And you need a good white pigment ink for this technique. My favorite is Hero Art's Unicorn White Pigment Ink. It's nice and vivid. The nice thing about this ink is when you ink up your stamp, you can make sure before stamping it that you have really good coverage. So if you look here, you can see it's bright white ink on our stamp. So I know I've got my stamp completely inked up. And I'm going to stamp that firmly onto my cardstock. Now you'll see that the image here is really bright and vivid, and it's just beautiful. But I want to add some color to it, or the look of dimension to it. So I'm going to take this one step further with some layering. Now you see the branch there, there's a little bit of brown around the branch. We're going to do that with stamp layering. So I'm going to take the exact same image, and I've cleaned it off, and I'm inking it up with Hero Art's soft brown ink. You could use any kind of dye ink here, but you just want a light brown. Now I'm going to stamp this directly over the white and slightly offset, just a little bit. This is nice because even if you're not great at stamping exactly on top of something, with this technique you kind of want to be off a little bit. And this gives us those light brown lines around the edges of our white image, which I think is really cool. And you'll see it more with the pink when we do the flowers in a moment. Now this next step is optional, but I'm coming in with a white colored pencil and just adding some highlights around on the branch. I'll do more of that in a moment, talk more about that pencil in a moment too. But let's go ahead and do our flowers. I'm just taking a few of these small flowers from the stamp set. Now I do want to say that the stamp set you see me using here was a prototype. They sent me a while back. This is what the stamp set will look like if you get it. And they put circles around which images go together in the layering, which really makes it easy. There's no guessing. You know which images you need to stamp on top of each other to get the look of dimension. For the flowers, I'm starting with the most solid image first, so the background of my flowers. Inking this up with the white ink and stamping it onto my craft. Now, if I were doing this on white cardstock, I would take this first layer of the flower with my lightest ink and then do the next layer with the darker ink. Here, I am starting with the white ink so that it's kind of a backdrop for our color, and it's going to make the color be a little bit softer when we do the next layer on top. I absolutely love the look of white pigment ink on craft or on any colored cardstock because it's just so nice and vivid. I'm stamping several different sizes of flowers, actually 3 different size flowers, a medium, a large, and a small, and just kind of scattering them across my branch. Now when I come in with my next layer, it's just going to be kind of like an outline of the flower and the veins towards the center. And with this, I'm going to use a dye ink, like we did with the brown dye ink on top of the white branch. I'm going to use a pink dye ink this time. This is Hero Art Shadow Ink. Now I'm using a dye ink because it just shows up a little bit on top of the white pigment ink. If you want more vivid color, use a pigment ink because that will sit more on top of the white pigment ink. But I want this to be very subtle. So I'm inking up my stamp. This is the second layer of that flower. And I'm going to stamp this on top of the white but slightly offset. And the fun thing about kind of offsetting it is some of the pink ink lands directly on the craft paper and it gets a little bit darker, but then most of it ends up on the white ink, which is a little bit softer, and it really just creates great dimension, and it looks completely different than if you were to use just pink inks and layer up different pink inks on white cardstock. So this is a great way to kind of stretch your stamp layering using a white pigment ink. I love how this looks like I used 2 different colors of pink ink, but really it's just the one color of pink ink. Some of it lands on the craft and some of it lands on the white ink. It just really looks cool in real life. It's a great way to stretch these stamps. Okay, so now I wanted to just show you how you can add some highlighting to this, to your stamping here. You could skip this if you want to and stop where you are, but one of the best tools you can have is a white colored pencil. I like Prismacolor colored pencils. This is what I showed you a little bit earlier, but I'm just going and adding a little bit of highlighting here and there on our white ink. This is a great tool to have. You can buy this pencil by itself and it's very inexpensive, and it's great for kind of making your white pigment ink stamped images pop. So you can see I'm just putting a little bit here and there. And you can see that even though it doesn't take long to add those white highlights, it makes a big difference. Now, if you wanted to take this a step further, you can come in with your other colors of colored pencils and add some coloring also. Here I'm just putting a little bit of dark brown around the edges of the branch just to make that brown stand out more. And then I'm coming in with a dark pink colored pencil and just adding some lines towards the center of the flowers. Again, you could skip this if you want to, but it really just intensifies that little bit of color against the white if you take the time to add this. You could use absolutely any colored pencils for this. I just find that the Prismacolor give really good results, especially that white Prismacolor pencil. Now, I decided at this point I wanted to add some leaves to my branch. So this is actually one of Altenews' older stamp sets. I've used it many times on my blog, and I'll link to a video here where I use this set. This one has a bunch of different size leaves on this. This stamp set is called Vintage Roses. So I'm just going to take a few of the small leaves here. I ended up only using one size of leaf, and I'm going to stamp the solid part of this leaf, the solid outline shape, with white ink in the areas where I want my little leaves to land. After I've stamped all the leaves with the white, I'm going to come in with the second layer of that image. It has a little bit less to it. It's just kind of the veins of the leaf. And I'm going to stamp that slightly offset with a Hero Arts Green Hills shadow ink. Again, any dye ink would work here. Now, since this is such a tiny image, you don't see a whole lot of that green on top of the leaves. So I stamped it a couple times so that I got more green on there. And then you can come in with a green colored pencil if you'd like to. But I just think that little pop of green here and there kind of balances this whole image out. So you just have the brown, the pink, and the green. So this is just another way you can use those layered type stamps where you start with white pigment ink and add color on top. And then if you want to, you can add the highlights with the colored pencils. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish off this card. I decided I wanted to keep this sentiment very simple, and so I used one of the new stamp sets from Altenews, this Thanks stamp set, and I actually took the image that says just a note of, and I'm just going to ink up the words just a note so I can get a completely different greeting out of it. So I'm going to put this onto my acrylic block, and then I'm just going to partially ink up the sentiment. So I'm not inking up the word of. Inking this well with my white pigment ink, and I'll just stamp that onto the craft cardstock. I love that white on there. Now, if you really want this to be super vibrant white, you could add white embossing powder to this, but I like how it's just a little bit softer when you don't emboss it. Now, I wanted to add a touch of glitter to the center of all my flowers. So I have my glossy accents here. This is another one of the fine tip applicators that I've been trying out. This fine line applicator top, you put on top of your glossy accents. So you pop the top off your glossy accents and screw this one on. And I found this is working really well. It has a little bit bigger nozzle, but it ends up putting just a right amount of glossy accents down, and it doesn't get clogged, or at least it hasn't gotten clogged for me. I have mentioned in videos that I've been trying out these different types of applicators, and I promise that I have a video coming soon on kind of like the verdict of what I found has worked the best for me. Here I'm adding a small drop of the glossy accents to the center of each of my flowers, and then I'm going to put glitter on top. You could use like Stickles glitter glue, but I really think it looks so fabulous when you put a drop of liquid adhesive down and then a fine glitter on top. It just catches the eye more, there's more shine, and it also adds a little bit of texture. So I'm using Elizabeth Craft Designs warm diamond glitter here. It's super fine and so pretty. I'm just taking a pinch and putting it over each of the flower centers, and then once it's dry, I'll just brush away the excess glitter, and the results are just gorgeous. It's hard to see in the video, but it really is pretty. Now it's time to finish up the card, and I decided to do something a little bit different and have a pink mat just on the right hand side and on the bottom edge. So here's how I went about doing that. I just put adhesive on the back of our stamped piece, and then I put this up against the corner of a piece of pink cardstock that I want to mat with. So I'm just going to put it right up against the top corner, and then we will leave a little bit of a mat on the other two edges. This is just a fun alternative to gluing this at the center of the card. So now I'm going to adhere this to the top left corner of my white note card, but I want to put some dimension behind it. I decided to cut a piece of white fun foam. This is just like the foam that you find at craft stores. I cut this slightly smaller than our matted piece, and I'm going to glue that on the back of our matted piece, and then glue this to our white note card. The reason I'm using a piece of fun foam there is it gives even dimension behind it. If I used foam tape, that wouldn't be very even, and when it goes through the mail, sometimes it gets kind of crushed. So I find that this lasts through the mail much better. So I really like using the fun foam for dimension as opposed to foam tape. So there you can see how nice that looks, kind of popped up over in the corner. Now, after I finished this card, I decided to get back into the habit of making an envelope that matches perfectly for the card. So I grabbed one of my Hero Arts envelopes in pink, and I did 3 of the flowers. I stamped the flower first in pink, then I did the second layer in white ink, and then added some pink colored pencil highlights to it. So it's always fun to use your stamps on your envelope to match your card while you have it all out. And there you have it, another way you can use your layer type stamps using white pigment ink. If you're interested in the products I use, they're linked below in my YouTube description, and you can find much more information over at my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com. As always, I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope to see you back soon.